Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? How you doing? Thank you so much for being here. I have a special guest for you, but I have a question. You guys know that I'm a collecting channel. I like to talk about stacking and collecting, and I like to talk about the history, not just of our money, but of what we've done in our country. Some of the good things, some of the bad things. And the guest that I have on today, you all know her. There's really no introduction needed, but Lynette Zang. How are you?
I'm great, but not everybody in the world knows who I am.
I think there's a lot of people. I don't think you give yourself enough credit.
No,
Um,
it's probably true because 'cause I'm frequently shocked. So,
like a new electrician. Sorry,
that was good. I
terrible
might
joke.
use that sometime.
I want to get right into it. Being a collector, I've got Morgan dollars surrounding me. I've got some gold dollars surrounding me, and you have a strategy that I absolutely love, and that is
Thank
your pre-33 gold.
you.
But why does it? And I talked a lot about this. Why, in your opinion, is pre-33 such an amazing thing to do?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of reasons why the pre-33s are amazing right now. First, we should probably say that, oh, okay, you can look around me and you can see I too am a collector, but that's not really why I do the coins. It was 1964, and my uncle Al was a major antique dealer back east, and he was my favorite uncle. And when my parents and I were at his house, I was 10 years old, and we were at his house, and he goes, "Come here, I want to show you something." And so we went in this back bedroom where he had these 2 tall floor safes, and he opened the doors of these safes, and he said to us, "If anything should happen to me, Aunt Bertie will be well taken care of for the rest of her life because of what's in these safes." So naturally, I looked, and what I saw was that you could not fit one more pre-1933 gold coin in those 2 safes. Knowing what I know now, I would guesstimate that there were at least 3 monster boxes in each safe, probably more,
Wow.
but a minimum of 3,000 ounces of gold. The only way that it was legal to own more than 5 ounces, because in 1964, you couldn't own more than 5 ounces of gold. You could do it in the pre-33 coins or jewelry, things like that. I can't say that I understood that at the time I was 10, but, definitely he also taught me, and this is critical, how hard assets move from undervaluation to fair valuation to overvaluation in a constant figure 8. They don't evaporate, and he also told me this, "Good you buy first with this, but good is always good." So those were like 3 key things. And so today, and when I got into the gold business, the reality is in the US, there have been 5, count them, 5 confiscations. Now, this is not the way that they spin it, but in reality, even Bretton Woods, we always say, "Oh, and they took us off the gold standard." But when you really stop and think about it, what we did was we confiscated the gold from all the foreign governments because they had shipped their gold to us in exchange for dollars with the agreement that they could turn those dollars back in at any time and pull the gold out of the system. But 1971, Nixon said, "Nope, that's not going to happen anymore." So, because I'm such a student of the history and really knowing that gold has been confiscated in this country, in the US, 5 times, well, thanks to our mutual friend, Tiger Stalker, to think they won't do it again is purely hopium. It is not a historic precedence. The historic precedence is for there to be a confiscation in this country, but we're seeing it around the world as well. So, um, The reason why I do just the raw ones, this is my savings account. This coin is 1879, right? This is just my raw pre-1933 gold coin that I use as a savings account. But then what I also find, remember, Uncle Al told me good is always good and told me how things moved. Well, I already know that the fundamental value of gold is much higher than where it's trading today. Actually, I just ran the numbers because there was a little bit of a gold find recently. And so an ounce of gold, even though it's the last time I looked earlier today, it was at something like, I think, 2,000 and change, or 52,000, it should be, but 5,200 and change, okay? The true right now, before they print any more money, on the moment that I did this, the true fundamental value in ounce of gold was 38,000 and change, and the true fundamental value of this ounce of silver was about 1,800 and change. So when I look at the manipulated spot markets, even at these levels that everybody's going, oh, this is great. This is great. I don't get that excited about it because I know enough. I've been in Wall Street long enough to understand the lie that they tell over and over and over again. That means that I can go in and on a collectible coin, I can spend up to $38,000, including all the fees and everything else that is associated with doing this business, and I can't get burned because the worst thing that happens, and here's one guarantee I can give you. I can't give you a lot. I will show up and do the work. And also, at some point, all assets go to their true fundamental value. I can't tell you the exact moment when, but I can tell you that's a guarantee. And so it is a very cheap and easy way for me to create an additional layer of protection from confiscation.
Is that something we need to be concerned with right now? Do you think that this is a real possibility?
Well, I don't know. How many times before there's historic precedents? 5 times is pretty significant to me, and the last time we like to say the last time was 33, but that's not true. The last time
That's
we had a
correct. Yeah.
confiscation was indeed in my lifetime since I was born in '54, and that was 1971. So desperate governments do desperate things, and just because they don't use the term confiscation, there are all different ways to confiscate.
True.
Price manipulation is a form of confiscation to keep you away from it, right? The special taxation is a form of confiscation to keep you away from it. Inflation is a form of confiscation. So there's all different ways, legalizate the way they do things. It's all about confiscating your work, your wealth. So yeah, it's happened before. To think it can't happen again is just hopium. That's it. And hopium is not a very good plan, in my opinion.
So seeing that hopium, I know that that came from Tiger Stacker. So I've got another
Oh,
question. Um,
love
he told me to ask you about your career change around Black Monday. Can you talk about that story?
Oh, it wasn't a career change in Black Monday. I was a new stockbroker over at Shearson. I was there. I had just gone off salary. So I had started a year earlier in October, actually. And back in those days, what they did was they gave you a certain salary, and then also you'd start making commission, and it would kind of change over time. And so by August, I was pretty much even where it wouldn't have mattered if I was just on straight commission or I was on the salary plus commission. So I decided to go off salary October 1st, going into Black Monday, right? Well, that was the single best day that I could have ever been a stockbroker. I mean, I remember what I was wearing that day. You know, I'm an early riser, so I usually like to eat an early lunch. And I had gone out to lunch. Everything seemed normal. I was in the office, everything, the phones were ringing, you know, and usually had about a half dozen. There were two rooms. You'd walk in, there was a foyer here and a room here and a room there. And then the reception desk was there. And then all the offices were in the back. So you couldn't see the offices. So I walked, you know, I walked out, went to lunch, came back, and it was a madhouse. It was packed. You couldn't barely move. The phones were ringing off the hook. I walk in the back, I see nobody. Nobody's there. Where is everybody? What is going on? I had no idea what was going on at that particular moment, although I knew all Hades had broken loose. The stockbrokers were literally, not figuratively, literally under their desks. They wouldn't take a call. They were scared to death to talk to anybody because the markets were imploding. But because I was so new and I cut my teeth on treasury debt, and so there were 2 things that I was all number 1, all my clients had treasuries. They were going through the roof. So I didn't have people calling up unhappy with me. So that was a huge advantage. But I also always told people that they needed to have physical gold and silver, even though I couldn't sell it to them. So all of my clients, if you know, that listened to me, were sitting with gold and they were also sitting gold, silver, and they were also sitting with treasuries. But I happened to have this client who owned a savings and loan in Crockett, Texas. And all I had done for him so far were buying treasuries and then writing calls against the treasuries for his bank. I wasn't doing any stocks or anything like that with him. But he also owned a bunch of oil wells and he had a bunch of friends that were oil wildcatters. And these guys are very, very, you know, aggressive and they take lots of risks, but they couldn't get a hold of their stockbrokers. So he had me, it was career making. He had me on a squawk box, because at that point, nobody had personal computers. I had a Quotron so I could see what was going on, but nobody else, the normal person didn't have that. And so he had me on a squawk box in the center of the table, with all of his very aggressive, knowledgeable trading, you know, risk-taking friends around there going, "What's going on with this? What's going on with this? What's going" So I was there all day, well, after lunch, giving them the blow by blow. And because they couldn't get a hold of their stockbrokers, guess what happened? I got them. But I didn't know at that time really how to read the technical language of the markets because I went to Shearson because they had the best training program on the street, but they didn't teach us how to read the markets because they didn't want us to have our own opinions. They wanted the guys from New York to tell us what we should do. So these guys, my God, they were technicians. They knew how to read the language of the markets, and now they were all my clients. So after Black Monday, we were buying stocks, and then I would give them the biggest discount that I was allowed to give them because we would buy it on Mondays and we would sell it on Fridays. All the volatility in the market, traders love volatility, right? We hear that all the time. But, yeah, that was the single best day that I could have ever been there, and of course, then right after that, we've got the plunge protection team. I think the volatility on, treasuries as well as stocks being at this low level, I question why it's so low with all this chaos going on, but hey, you know, that's for them to keep the calm. But yes, that was Black Monday, and I can tell you, I don't care how safe or wonderful you think a stock might be, when the markets implode, everything goes with it, except at that point, gold and treasuries. This time, look at what's happening in the treasury market. That was the beginning, this is the end.
So when you look at what people are doing financially, what is probably one of the biggest mistakes you
Believing Wall Street, believing the numbers. They see the zeros go up and up and up. They see the stock markets making a new high. We're in melt up at this point. Um, believing Wall Street because there really is no good price discovery there. There really hasn't been since we went, I mean, it eroded over time, but once we went off the gold standard completely, yeah, that's the biggest mistake getting married to those numbers. Because here, I have this $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. That means I'm a trillionaire in Zimbabwe. But you know what I can buy with this?
Nothing.
Exactly. So so what a rising stock market, crypto markets do, when markets go up, it gets more eyes. That's why they've suppressed the price, and even though gold and silver, the spot markets have outperformed the other markets for what, 10, 20 years, they're only now talking about it, right? They weren't talking about it all that other time. So, believing Wall Street's lies, that's the biggest mistake that people make. You've got to know what the true value of something is. And particularly with cryptos, and some people may say this is different than that, and maybe we'll find out, or stocks. If you can only convert that asset into fiat money, dollars, euros, yen, whatever, then the real trend is in the purchasing power. It's not at going up to 0, going up in terms of zeros, hence my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note.
Do you see or think that digital money could ever replace money entirely? Do you think that could happen?
Well, first of all, it would be a currency, not money, and I shouldn't refer
I
to
should
it
say,
either because this is just a currency, it's not money. This is money. This is money. I can see them wanting that because they want to take us into, full surveillance and control. And I'll tell you, I'm so grateful that I was born in 1954 and I've had a long enough period of time. Once you get old enough, then you have the ability to look back and see the path. And what I've seen, I mean, my granddaughter has less rights than I had when I was growing up. That's ridiculous. So they do it slowly over time so that you don't realize that, how do you catch a wild hog? You put food in a place and you do it consistently and the hogs will come and eat the food and then you can put a fence up. And at first they might be nervous, but if you keep putting the food there, it's easy pickings. They'll come and do it, and you can get the next setup and the next one, and before you know it, you're trapped. And that's what I've been watching happen to our rights and the freedoms and democracy, and especially the empathy and people coming together and having conversations so that they can make those educated choices. Unfortunately, what I've seen over the years is a divide and conquer to the point where if you don't agree with me, I hate your guts and I'm not going to have that
yeah,
conversation with you, right?
yeah,
No,
that's
no, no,
bad
no.
news.
We have to come together in community. That's a strategy, just like the inflation in the money supply. That's a strategy. Going completely into digital. Excuse me, I can understand gold and silver as money. It has the broadest base of buyer. I counted and this is not a conclusive list, but there are 33 different entities that use physical gold in their business. 36 that use silver. This stuff is used one place. Demand goes away. Well, here's your $10 trillion note that can't buy an egg. And this is also used in one place. So, and this is my physical representation of Bitcoin. Don't you think it's interesting how much alike they look? Don't you think it's interesting that the way that cryptocurrencies are portrayed is either gold, silver, or platinum? It's perception management, because if they can manage how you perceive things, then you will move forward in the way that they want you to go. I believe that we need to take those here, I got this, okay? I believe that we need to take these blinders off and look at the truth. Why is gold and silver sound money? It's very simple. 33 users, 36 users. That's what puts them above the physical, not the digital. That's what puts them above and more powerful than any government and any central bank. And I'll tell you, silver is the fuse and it typically moves first, which is why we're seeing that gold silver ratio get more narrow. But once the hyperinflation gets apparent, it becomes apparent to the public. Well, then we see that gold silver ratio broaden again. So, what we're looking at here is a repeatable pattern that happens. Well, it's happened over 4,800 times. I mean, and this happens to be a Confederate US bill. I can't buy anything with this either. Frankly, I don't pay a lot for this stuff, so it probably didn't pay $5 for this. And it happens to be a 10 Confederate States of America, $10. It's a stated value on here and in the stock market and all of that as well. So we have to understand broadest base of demand puts them above global central bankers and governments. That's what you need to have. That's your business.
So do you think we'll ever be able to truly opt out of this broken system?
I'm working on it. I'm working on it by getting redeemable gold back in the system again. You know, community since September 2023 when I went to Australia and all of a sudden I threw out everything I had prepared because I was just compelled to start talking about community. And I'm in such a huge learning curve. But community is the single most important thing that you and I can help to spread and talk about
Agree.
because we have to, what I see is if it's good for me, I don't care if it hurts you. As long as it's good for me, I'm fine. But that's not really the way the world works. And you have to ask, is that what you want for our children and our grandchildren and the children that aren't born yet? Because that's not the world I want to leave them because I'm okay. I mean, personally, I think I'm in a pretty good shape and I'm not really all that worried about my family because I know what I've done and I understand the strategy that I'm executing. But it isn't just about me and my family. It's about you and your family, and him and his family, and her family. It's about all of our families collectively coming together, sharing the gifts that we have been given, whether it's skill sets, because that's barterable, right?
Right.
Whatever it is that you have, you come together in community because it takes a village. It does. It takes a village. So, oops.
You remember this? You ever seen this?
No, I don't think I have ever seen that. The
The book
Lost
called
Way?
the book called The Lost Ways, and this is amazing. You're talking
Really?
about skill sets, okay? And so you want to learn how to build a fire or plant some seeds or build a water ditch or build a shelter, how to make dough out of some basic things, how to cook different items without electricity, how to build an outhouse. It's all in here. These are all
Well,
lessons
I'm
that
gonna
are
get it.
these are all lessons that are taught. It's called The Lost Ways. I absolutely love this book. Um, and
Thank you
this
for
is,
sharing with me.
but this is going to go to my next question. These are education is important. We
Oh,
have
huge.
to watch out for all the disinformation out there. There's tons of it. And Tiger and I have talked a lot about the difference between misinformation, which is somebody who thinks they know what they're doing, they just speak it wrong, and flat out disinformation. And there's so much disinformation out there that we really have to target that.
Yeah.
If you were to try and engage somebody into a series, a book, an author who really understands the intricacies of that, what book would you recommend?
Well, I think one book that should be required reading is The Creature from Jekyll Island, because you need to understand what the Federal Reserve really is, which is a private corporation, and their job is not for the betterment of you and me. Their job is to sustain the system that they put in place. And it also shows the truth because what does it say on the top of these bills? Federal Reserve note. Well, the Federal Reserve is a corporation and a note is a debt instrument. And so I like The Creature from Jekyll Island. That would definitely be a must read so that people understand who the central bank is and what their job really is because they tout it as if we're fighting this inflation, right? Which is garbage. Their job is to regulate the rate and speed so that you don't change your behavior, your habits, or your spending habits. So that's where I would go. But that I'm definitely getting the Lost Ways book. That's important. We have to learn those skills again because they've been taught away from us.
Well, and we have a lot of stackers and preppers that are in chat right now. And so we hear all the time, um, gold and silver is going to be your money. That's going to be there. But when it first happens, food, water, and skills, you look at what happened through the Great Depression. That's what helped people survive. We've
Exactly.
lost a lot of those on that reliance of technology. So we have to get some of those back. Talk to my daughter about school, and she's talking about, well, these kids are in the trades. What in the world are the trades? And I'm like, the fact that you don't know is a problem. These are carpenters and builders and masons. And she's like,
Plumber.
oh, those are trades? And I'm like, that's what we mean by trade school. Yeah, that's,
Mhm,
and so
mhm.
having that education and just going, talking to my sons and going, have I failed as a dad? How do you guys not know this?
You know, it isn't that, but so much and this was also part of the plan, and this is the part that people don't realize because I read so much of the foundational stuff from the IMF, from the biz, from wherever, from the Federal Reserve, etcetera. And when we were going, I mean, look, they didn't suddenly wake up on August 15th, 1971 and go, "Oh, we're going to confiscate the rest of the gold that's out there." They didn't wake up one day. This was a plan, and we need to understand that this was a plan. And because our government and all governments frankly really knew that once we were fully off the gold standard that inflation would be much more pervasive, though it was pretty pervasive, but more hidden and more controlled prior to that. They actually were talking about the benefits for them of women entering the workforce. Now, make no mistake, my mom worked her whole life. I have worked my whole life. It's really all about choices. But what I want to point out in here was that it used to be that there was the heart of the home that was there, right? So when the kids would come home from school, there was somebody there that would give them some milk and cookies and talk about their day and do this and do that. So by bringing women into the workforce, you started to degrade the role of the family in society. Well, we're way far away from that now. And so, when you ask that question, how did my children not know what a trade was? I think that has a lot to do with it. And the other thing that we've seen, like we talked about a little bit earlier, but we've also seen this huge loss of empathy. Like, I'm the only one that matters. Well, when did that happen? Right?
Agree.
I remember hearing my uncles and aunts and parents talk about during the depression when they would be sitting down, having whatever, and hobos that would travel on the rails and they would jump off at different places. And my grandmother always fed them, but the whole community did. And I grew up hearing about how this woman over here, because back then there were ghettos. So you would have Irish ghettos and this wasn't a bad word at that point,
Right.
but everybody that was Irish would congregate in an area and Jewish and Italian and stuff like that. And I remember hearing that my grandmother who happened to have a chicken shop, right? So she sold eggs and she sold pickles and she sold chickens, and there was this family that lived in a different ghetto than we did, or well, I wasn't alive then, but then she did. And she was a very proud woman. She had lost her husband, and she was a very proud woman, and she would not take charity. So my grandmother would just barely crack the eggs just a little bit, and she would butcher the chicken just a little bit different so that she could say to the woman, "I can't sell these anyway. They'll just go bad. Would you take them?" That's community, right?
Yeah.
That's helping each other. And that's where we have to get to again, that empathy, that understanding what somebody else is going through and what can I do to help support that person, that family, that unit, that country.
And we talk about community all the time on this channel. And one of the things that I'm really big on is I like education. And when I learn something, people are like, "You seem to have fun with this." Like when I learn something, I love to share it, right?
Me too.
Because information is power, right?
Mm,
And we need to arm ourselves with as much information as we can, and it needs to be good information. So
mhm,
I always challenge people when you hear something on my challenge or on my channel, challenge it, ask
mhm.
questions about it. Critical thinking is something we don't do enough of in this society.
Yeah, that's the one thing that AI really kind of has me concerned with the younger generations that are coming up because it'll spit out anything. I'm not
Yeah.
saying I don't use it as a tool. I do, except that I have enough background to know what they're saying. So I'm kind of trying to train it, to be honest with you, so that at least if somebody else is asking
Right.
about
Yeah.
gold or this or that or the other thing, that I got a better shot at getting them information and not disinformation.
Tiger asked a question. I want to find that really quick, and I had it, and then I was listening to what you're saying and got
Oops,
sidetracked.
sorry.
No, it's my fault, not yours. Um, global issue, distraction, stimulus, wealth transfer, and now continuing. He's like, I see this like a new manifest destiny. We discussed this, did a video on it. Do you agree?
I'm not actually sure what you're asking me. Sorry.
Well, that's what he wrote. So he's saying that
Tiger.
he sees in this new email her. No,
Yeah, Josh.
yeah. So 949 just gifted 5 memberships. Thank you, 949. Derek, Harley Babe, Tyler Lane, Lola Davis, and Shinyman. So thank you, 949, for doing that. Um, in the light, now I gotta wait for these goofy things to sign off. In the light of education, if
Mhm.
there's a single piece of Lynette Zang that you want to give us, a I've learned a lot of lessons through my career. This thing always comes back. It's my hold true, my steadfast, whatever. What would that?
I would say, and this is something that everybody can do, and I like my charts and graphs. So if everything were taken away, but I could choose one, it would be the purchasing power of the consumer dollar over at the Federal Reserve Education Department, FRED. Everybody has open access to it. And because it tells you, it shows you the whole life cycle of this crap. And the fact that it started out at a dollar. And then if you look on that left axis, what is it? It's a big fat goose egg, 0. And officially, we still have 3 cents left. So you got to pay attention to that. If I could have one more, it would also be the confidence levels because this is a Ponzi scheme. And the Ponzi scheme always requires 2 key things, and that's confidence and new money, both of those. So, but the purchasing power of the consumer dollar is probably giving you, even though I know that it's probably worse than what I'm looking at there, it gives you more of the history and the story. Because after all, how many times can you be lied to and you do not know the truth? We hear them talk about the strong dollar. President Trump wants a weak dollar. That's relative to other currencies, but every currency is losing purchasing power and its true fundamental value is zero, zero. So this is where they're admitting that, and you can see it, which means that the stock market's going up and the crypto market's going up and all those zeros, right? And the my $10 trillion Zimbabwe note. I'm a trillionaire in Zimbabwe, but I can't buy anything with it. So the purchasing power is the true trend of all of these fiat money assets, including the cryptocurrencies. Because if you can only convert it back into dollars, that's the real trend.
And a lot of people, for those of you who aren't students of history, financial history, it's not like this has just happened one or two times throughout history. Zimbabwe itself has reset 3, 4 times, most
Six.
recently within 6 times. Okay. So most recently within the last like 5 or 6 years, right? They tried to put themselves on a gold standard, do something.
Yeah, that was actually it's really interesting, and I'm glad that you specifically bring that up because, Zimbabwe I've been following Zimbabwe since 2006 with their first hyperinflationary event. And now they are on their 6th iteration. They want you to think that it's backed by gold, and this
Yeah.
is a warning
Yeah.
sign for everybody because they're coming out with these asset-backed, new products, and that's what they are. They're just products. And so, they presumably because the public has no confidence in them. None in the currency.
Right.
So the Zim Gold, it's not redeemable. So presumably there's 40% back of it. They came out with that in April, and in October, they did a 44% overnight revaluation. If it was actually backed by gold, they couldn't have done that. If the gold was redeemable, that's why it's so important as if I wanna get it back in the global system again, but it must be redeemable because that is the only way that the public can take back its power. We gave it away in '33. It is time for us to take it back.
Do you think there's any chance of a reset, a revaluation? I mean, gold has been evaluated at, huh?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yes, the official US price of gold is
Right.
$42.22, right? Do I think that there's any chance of a revaluation? I think that there is a 5 gazillion percent chance of a revaluation because the new system that they need to take us into, whether it's got gold in it or not, right? I was asking for the longest time, what will justify um, creating the new money? And from all of my research and reading, I kept coming back to 2 things: debt and purchases. Well, when President Trump legalized the stable coins with the Genius Act, he answered my question because whether people realize it or not, the monetary system has been changed. I was there in 65, I was there in 71, right? So I there's not and I could be wrong about this, but I not usually wrong about this kind of stuff. So the system has been changed to a new digital system, and I believe well, number 1, if it's based on debt, the debt levels of all of these governments is unpayable, and what are we watching right now? Is that started in Japan, but is rolling throughout the world, right? The investors, the bond vigilantes are starting to question the solvency of these governments, right? So they're pushing up interest rates on a global basis. Let me tell you, we have to, I mean, when I see what's going on out there, so many times I just have to shake my head or I'm end up yelling at the computer screen or the television, because how many times can you be lied to when you do not know the truth? Exactly. exactly.
I keep tape
So,
handy.
yeah, yeah, well, look, I'm just a little guy, so they haven't done that to me yet, and I try and just stay in my lane. I have lots more opinions than I ever get to share because I need to stay in my lane so I could stay on air. But it's a sad circumstance when you have to self-censor, and I've been having to self-censor particularly since 2020.
What is your So I want to go back to something you said regarding the stablecoin.
Mhm.
There's a lot of people that I don't think they really understand what stablecoin is. Could you give them kind of an overview of what what is Lynette Zing's understanding definition behind stablecoin?
Well, it is what we're gonna use the stable coins instead of the CBDCs, the central bank digital currencies, because here in the US, "Oh, no, we're not going to." But a stable coin, anybody can issue a stable coin. And so Amazon will have their own stable coins, and, I don't remember, I mean, it's pretty much, common these days to hear, "This one's gonna issue them. That one's gonna issue them." They're supposed to take the place of the US dollar, and it's supposed to really it's being used to create an artificial market for dollars and for treasury bonds. But I believe that it's a mechanism that will be used to usher in the hyperinflation and do this. I mean, it's not gonna work because it doesn't really do what they say that it's gonna do, but you always have to be careful of how something is named because a stable coin is not stable. So it's a dollar substitute to support the treasury market, but the dollars to buy the stable coins, they just came out with another report, but I did a piece on a treasury report, maybe 5 months ago or something like that on how the stable coins were going to usher in the hyperinflation because we need a big crisis. So I guess that's what I'm saying. You can take a choice. Do you want the central banks to be dictating everything you do, or do you want and they are a private corporation, or do you want Amazon to be dictating everything you do? Take your pick. It's stable coins are really a marriage, an overt marriage of corporate and government together. But take your pick of who you want to be dictating what you do, how you do it, when you do it, if you don't do it. And they will use all sorts of tactics to sucker you in. But there is no doubt in my mind that, well, we have to. If it's based on debt, which treasuries are debt, notes are debt, then we have to get rid of that debt that's not payable, and they can't put gold in there, and you asked me about gold revaluation. Every single central bank has a gold revaluation account. So it's bogus to think that they would revalue. That's what I've been reading a lot of talk of. Well, if they revalued now, at $5,000 an ounce, then it would do it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't cover the debt. You know how much they'd have to revalue to in the US because I do it globally, but I ran the numbers in the US based on US debt that they admit to, mind you, and the amount of gold that they say that they have, mind you, just based on that, presuming we're getting real data, they would have to revalue gold to $135,000 an ounce to cover the debt. And that's how they do it when they do those overnight revaluations, which is why when you look on a chart, you see spot gold go straight up, right? It's not gold appreciating. It is the dollar or the euro or the yen or wherever you are in the world. It is that government money. It's showing you the truth that that is going to zero. Gold is the same as it's always been. And its main job is to hold your purchasing power over time. And it does that because it's indestructible and it's used everywhere. Broadest base of demand. People have to not lose sight of that. because this is a bazooka. So is silver. Going in, these are your bazookas when they're putting us into a new system. And if I have my way, it will be our ultimate, it'll level the playing field. We wouldn't have a K-shaped economy if we were still on the gold standard. What is that? Wall Street's making new highs. The stock market in Japan's making new highs as the bond markets are falling apart. That's really trying to get out of the yen more than it is trying to do anything else or capture those gains because everything is so hunky dory. It's not hunky dory. When people have to take out loans for easy payments to feed their family for a week,
Yeah.
we got a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. The price of food, the price of certain commodities, it's unreal. What is, I don't know how to ask this question, so I'm going to try the best I can. So we stack, we collect, we prepare for that event, whatever that event might be, right?
Mhm.
But what do we do to rebuild? What do we
Mhm.
have to start thinking about in the scope? Because I heard a comment by Stacking Surfer. You know him. You've been on his channel a number of times. He is the one that helped me get over 7K subs. Real nice guy. Um, and he said something that I thought about for years, but never really put it into the term of financial. And that is when we are in these commodity battles with countries like China, we think in terms of 10, 20, 30, 40 years. They
Oh,
think in terms of 100 to 1,000 year dynasty. How do we change that fundamental thinking? How do we start thinking about construction and what happens and how we prepare ourselves for that long game?
boy, it's really kind of a challenge because haven't we been guided to think shorter and shorter and shorter term? Oh, that happened 15 seconds ago? That's old. Right, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not wrong about that.
Uh,
That's what they want you to do so that you don't have that. I don't really all of my work, I'm always showing long-term stuff because everything has a life cycle, but it doesn't happen in 10 seconds. I mean, maybe to a amoeba it does, but it doesn't happen in 10 seconds. It happens over a period of time. And central bankers always say, and governments say this too, that they want distance between policy and how that's put out to the public and when the public sees it. So remember, the bond bubble was popped. When was that popped? 2022
yeah,
when they
I was about to say
started
21. Yeah.
raising rates and they broke a 40-year trend cycle. All right. Well, this is not the first time that the yen carry trade has reared its ugly head. They've always managed, and will they this time? I don't know. We'll see. But one of these times, they're not going to be able to get control of that narrative again. So I think, learning these skill sets, because, to your earlier point as well, we've been taught away from that. I mean, I've been eating organic. My sister, that's 18 months older than me, was a hippie. And so growing the food, I mean, back in the day, we were talking about preserving the planet, all the same things that I still hear, talking about today. But what we really have to do, I don't know that we can really shift somebody's thought process into 1,000 years, but we can certainly shift our thought process beyond how long we live. I mean, that's kind of what I do when I'm thinking about dynastic wealth. And dynastic wealth is wealth that lasts in families at least 300 years. So you could kind of think about the King of England. And it has 3 major components: real estate, truly rare collectibles, and gold. And with gold, you can accumulate the other 2 if you're in the right place at the right time with that right asset. But this is stability. So I can't say that I really know how to do it. I guess I try and do that with my work by showing the long-term trends, but I think that also goes to thinking about more than just yourself.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is one thing that we really need to get into. And I'm glad you said that. We have lost, and you talk about community being the most important. And for everybody in here, this is not just speech. I hear you talk about this everywhere you go. It's on
Mhm,
your About Us on your page. I just dropped the link to the
mhm,
website. If you've not gone there before, go check out Zang Enterprises. Go watch what they do.
mhm.
The thumbnail should look very familiar because it's all tied off of what you have. Um, but the one thing I see constantly is that building of community, making sure we do that.
Mhm.
We have to get back to that as a nation. If we don't do that, there is no way we have
No,
got
there
to come
isn't.
together.
Mhm. 100%. It's why I do this. I travel around the world speaking about this. I hand out we should be, Natalie, why don't we send him some dime cards too? Have you seen our dime cards yet?
So I heard the analogy the first time when we interviewed you for Stack Elector. And I was like, and I stopped Tiger and I said, "Oh, here's the thing about this. I teach. So I teach process improvement. I work with medical quality and I teach people process. And it's very, very hard to make a very simple and understandable term that just goes, oh, and that dime does it. So for the audience, share that because I really like, we joke about people like dropping the ball in New York Times and stuff like that. This is a great analogy.
Right. I mean, I lift weights, right? And I've been going to him for many years, and he happens to be an attorney turned gym rat. So he's a pretty bright guy, and he's in his mid 40s. His undergraduate degree was in history. So we were talking one day, not that long ago, really. And I don't actually remember how we got on the topic, but I happened to say something about, well, silver was our money prior to 1965. And he goes, "It was? I didn't know that." And I was shocked because this is a very well-educated person, even historically well-educated, and he did not know that our dimes used to be silver, quarters, half dollars, dollars. And that's where I
Yeah.
got the idea from. And I said, "Well, we're asking people to position into sound money. They need a foundation of sound. They don't know what sound money is. They've never held it in their hands." So we came up with this, and it says, have a pair a dime shift. And on this side is a pre 1965 dime, and on this side is a new dime. The date now, when we first did these, so that's the card that I have. It's old. We did it on August 27th of 2025 is when we first bought these dimes, right? So at that time, it was $2.78. That was our cost to buy one silver pre 1965 silver dime. Now it's probably 5, $6, right? And it's not the dime going up in value or silver going up in value, it's the dollar going down. On this side is just a regular dime. You you look at them at first glance and they look the same. And that's how they do it. That's how they always make the shift. I'll show you this again in just a second. But it puts sound money in their hands and it makes a point because if you look on the rim, on the pre-65 is just silver because it is a silver dime. On the other one, there's a copper rim. So they took all the value out of the currency. And that's the other thing people really need to understand. They recently did away with the penny, right? Why? Because and there's no copper in the penny anymore, but they did away with it because it cost them 3.9 cents to create one penny. So, whenever the money of the realm, the silver, the gold, gets too expensive for the stated face value, they need to find cheaper money. So, this stuff, okay, this is okay. I don't have a dime here, but let me show you something because I like doing this. I think it really makes the point very well. And people need to know how they make this transition. How in the world did they do this without anybody really realizing it and agreeing to it? Here it is. Okay. And then this. Sorry about this. Okay. Let me show you. It's very interesting. I find it interesting. This was the money, right? A 1 ounce gold coin, $20 gold coin, face value. Well, I mean, goodness gracious, if you carry a lot of this around in your pocket, it could get so heavy it could pull your pants down. So, wouldn't this be so much more convenient? Because everything is always sold as convenience. And this too has a $20 face value. It says $20 on that coin. Okay, well, it's got that little gold there. They're both worth the same thing. I can walk in the bank with this, walk out with that. It's the same thing. But at the same time, they allowed this bill in circulation. Can you see how close they look to each other? And this is a Federal Reserve note. So it's corporate debt. And actually, I have the data to show you how they converted this into corporate debt. But all three of these, with the stated value of $20, were in circulation for 20 years. People go, well, they're all the
Yep.
same thing. So then when they took those away, this was left. And people thought nothing had changed. When in reality, what they did was they gave up their power. And they should have not. They should have said, no, we're not turning in our gold.
That sound is Tiger Stacker dropping 5 gifted memberships. I Am Broken, Wild Zombie, Mama T, North Shore, and 2 Old Guys. Thanks so much, Tiger. Appreciate it.
Hi, Tiger.
So I don't let him hold the dimes because he dropped them once and I told him no more dropping dimes. Like we're not supposed to do that. The last question, and I'm going to say for today, I would love to be able to do this again if you're interested.
Absolutely.
The last question I have for today is not financial advice. Okay, that's not the intent of doing this. With silver and gold being where they're at, is Lynette buying, selling, or holding?
I am buying, baby.
Buying.
I am buying because I am crystal clear. That 38,000 gold and 1,800 silver, I don't get blinded by the numbers. I know that this is worth that much. So yeah, I'm buying and I don't give a hoot about the premium in this because this is my layer. And I am working on a piece right now, which I can't tell you exactly when I'm going to have it done because it's got to be like really, 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 really good. But on the Noomies and how they behave and how the different quality levels of the Noomies behave, because there's gold and then there's gold and there's silver and then there's silver.
Yep.
And that's why the sound money strategy that we execute at Zang Enterprises is built in layers. But the first thing that you have to do is establish your goals. And if you don't know how to establish your goals, we can help you establish your goals. That's not a problem. And then once we know what your goals really are, that is when we can start to say, okay, this is how much and what kind of gold you need. This is how much and what kind of silver you need. So that it really is a customized plan, but it's built in layers. So it'll have a bit of everything in there based upon what it is that you want to do or accomplish, I should say.
So I pulled up the website. You can click on the Get Started button, enter your email address. It will bring up information on how you can get in contact with Zang Enterprises. Go check out the website. I like what you guys have done. And I told Tiger I hijacked the front screen for the thumbnail. I hope you don't mind.
Don't mind at all.
It was a great, it was a great call. I also played a little bit with your name, hopefully to catch some attention. I put your name upside down where the PCS logo was.
Okay.
Just a little fun here. Lynette, I appreciate the offer for the interview. Thank you for coming up and doing this. I would love to do it again, but what I want to do right now is I want to see if the chat has got me up to 100 likes. If they do, I'm going to give away an ounce of silver, just to thank everybody for you being on. We've had a number of people in here. We've already got a number of subscribers. So if you guys get me to 100 likes within the next 2 minutes, I'm going to go ahead and give something away.
Awesome.
Any final words of wisdom while we give these folks a chance to hit the button?
Wow. Yeah. Don't procrastinate. People always think that they're going to have time to do everything right before, but I became a prepper right after. I mean, when 2008 happened, I knew that was the end. And that's when I started prepping. And oh my gosh, I can't even tell you how glad I am that I have done what I've done. So just don't wait. Just get it done. Get it done. Build that community around you. Go to a farmer's market. Go to a community garden. Get to know the people that grow your food. Give them a day's worth of labor. Create that community locally and keep stacking. Because if we can get 3% of the population globally to convert their garbage fiat into sound money, gold and silver, I believe that we have a shot at getting redeemable gold back in the global monetary system again and get involved locally because we've got to do it from the bottom up and the top down. So we've got this grassroots effort, but if we can get enough states to legalize gold and silver, a lot of those laws, they are not perfect, but it is a step in the right direction. And if we can get enough states to legalize gold and silver, then we could have a level of influence over the federal government. So it's bottom up, top down, share, share, share. Education is everything because how many times can you be lied to and you do not know the truth? And the markets, Wall Street, it's a big fat lie. All they have is sizzle. They have no stake. This is stake. Get it done. And the whole rest of the mantra: food, water, energy security, barterability, wealth preservation, community, the most important, and shelter.
Well, I like what this guy just dropped in chat, or this person put in chat. It says, ignore the haters. Metals are a solid foundation for the future. Those are great words to end on. We unfortunately didn't get to the 100 likes, but I want you all to comment in the video down below. So I want you to put in hashtag lynettezang in the comments. Now, not here, but in the video portion of this when it drops. So give it about 10, 15 minutes. I'm going to give away an ounce of silver anyway, just to say thanks for Lynette coming on, for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to ask her some really good questions. If you're not subscribed to her, go check her out at Lynette Zang or Zang Enterprises, which the YouTube.
Yep. Zang Enterprises or Lynette Zang. It'll get there either way.
Outstanding. And folks, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you. Lynette, we are going to sign off. Thank you so much for this. I am looking forward to chatting to you. And by the way, I sent Natalie, if she's sitting there, I sent her an email
right
because you said something about that diamond. I have an idea. So I dropped something to her. So go check that out.
Awesome. And I'll tell you what, Tiger, now they don't know I'm going to do it. And Jacqueline always goes, oh, but then she smiles. We're going to send you, how many do you think? 5? Okay. Natalie said 5. We're going to send you 5 dime cards that you can give away.
Awesome. Outstanding. Well,
share
thank you.
Share the what? Share the idea.
You want me to say it out loud?
Oh, sure.
Okay. So now you're going to get the numismatist. All right. So 2026. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to pull up this one. We'll keep the site up and we'll keep her an eye up. 2026 is the semi-quincentennial, the founding of the Declaration of Independence. That's when we signed it. It's been 250 years. There are some new coins coming out. One of them is the Expanding Liberty. This is the one that Liberty has the new dime. It's the remake of the dime. My idea is that you take 200, 250 dimes of the new model, put them in your dime card and make them limited editions for people that have done remarkable things in the. They would be special collector Lynette Zang type cards. They would have your thing on them, and they would be really cool for people who've done some neat stuff for your channel. I just think it'd be a fun idea. And I was like, I love the dime card. I think you'd have a lot of people really engage in that. There'd be fun giveaways, or just to say thank you to people that have done that, honoring the semi-quincentennial. So just an idea.
It's a great idea. And this has been a lot of fun. So we need to do more together.
I absolutely love that. All right, Lynette, take care, folks. Be well, be blessed. We'll see you in the stream.